And so it would finish 1-1. There was some boos at the final whistle at Old Trafford. A missed opportunity for United to go right now. As we now welcome in former Manchester United player Phil Jones to the show. Great to have you with us as well, Phil. Let's just start with today's game. Do you feel that that's another missed opportunity for Manchester United?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Seems to be the same old story, one step forward, two steps back. I think the game against Everton was very lacklustre, lack of urgency, lack of intent, even down to 10 men, Everton. And then they go and get a good result against Palace. And I think even in the first half against Crystal Palace, they should have been or could have been 3 or 4-0 down. They were quite lucky. But they got the win, they got the 3 points, and you're hoping that they can build on that again back at Old Trafford under the lights again. And just didn't quite happen tonight again. I thought for 30 minutes, 35 minutes again was real lack of urgency from United. Didn't move the ball quick enough. West Ham were solid, compact, and there's one thing when you are in a low block, you have to offer a threat on the counter attack, and I thought they did that really well in the first half.
I mean, Phil's right. They should have been behind at Palace. They were not, and they dug that one out. I mean, how Xerxes scored from the angle he did, it should never have been. Henderson should never have allowed it. They had the Everton game. They had this one where had they won, they'd have been gone fifth, and we would have sat here and had some harebrained conversation, absolute stupidity about, they're fifth. What does that mean? Level with Chelsea? Are they? No, they're not as good as Chelsea. They're not as good as the bulk of the teams up there. You can't be 1-0 up at home against one of the worst teams in the Premier League and be dominated for the last 20, 25 minutes. You can't have that. I'm sorry, but you should be good enough to push on and at the very least, push West Ham back, and they're the side that are hanging on. Not Man United. Not Man United clearing balls off the line, and he brings on Lisandro Martinez with 3 minutes to go, a centre-half. I know he hasn't got much on the bench, but does he not want to go and win the game? Kobe Mino's on the bench. Just strange for me. United are not a very good side. They have a manager at the moment who I think he's a bit like, I said this the other day, he's a bit like Ten Hag in a sense where he'll get enough results at the moment just to keep people away. Just to make sure the questions are not too incisive about his job. But in terms of a match and how they played and how they allowed West Ham back into it, a really poor West Ham side. Yeah. It's quite frankly, it's just not good enough, but it's not a surprise. We've seen it a lot from Man United. We've seen that lack of urgency. We see it when other teams put them under a bit of pressure, they start to panic. And in the end, West Ham may have gone on and won the game. And as I said, this is a side that even Liverpool, who have struggled to get a result against most teams, Liverpool comfortably beat them on their own patch. And I just felt as the second half wore on, was not a very good performance from Manchester United.
I think that's the thing. It's hard to overstate how poor West Ham are, in truth, especially if you are a team top half of the table or have aspirations of being top half, let alone top six, coming to your patch. And now I guess in boxing terms, there's a glass jaw to this United side because, let's be honest, up until the West Ham goal, there was only ever one winner in this. As a matter of fact, probably 30 seconds before West Ham scored, Casey turns to me and asks about, can you see West Ham coming back into this? And my answer was absolutely not. And that's me with my West Ham glasses on. Absolutely not. Then all of a sudden, West Ham get the goal, make what you want to the set piece. Again, how Bowen gets so free, why does Bruno Fernandes get sucked so close into the ball and the ball beat him so comfortably. But from then on in, the response came from West Ham in terms of the bulk of possession and the threat to goal. And United just did not seem to have it in them to go on and push on and win this game. And again, they're on their own patch against a team that I feel will be in a relegation battle throughout the rest of the season. There is nothing about this West Ham that's encouraging, yet you come to Old Trafford, pick up a point. I mean, that, again, in terms of United's own aspirations, is disappointingly poor.
Yeah, Phil, what's your diagnosis of Manchester United? They should be winning games like this against teams that aren't doing well, like West Ham, particularly Old Trafford with the fans behind them.
Yeah, no, like I said, for me, it's more of the the way they start games, especially at Old Trafford, has been poor. It's been staggered. I remember everyone knows the Old Trafford when You know, the balls are coming in the box and they're sustaining attacks, and it's relentless, it's ruthless, and we're just not seeing that at the minute. We're seeing very few chances or clear-cut chances created, especially in the final third. And teams feel confidence from that, build confidence from that. West Ham did it today. I thought, you know, like you guys said, for as poor as West Ham have been and have been this season, you know, when you're down there, when you're struggling, what you've got to do is fight for every ball, every duel. And I thought they did that really, really well tonight. Yes, you've got to create your own look and get a bit lucky at times, which they did. But, you know, as you said, even Bowen, once they got it back to 1-1, they had a little chance where it got flashed across the box, and anyone running onto that could have easily finished 2-1 to West Ham.
Are the players not good enough, Phil, or does it come down to the coach?
Look, there's always going to be a question mark over the manager. You're the manager of Man United. There's always going to be question marks. There's always going to be hype around Man United. I always say it's one of the biggest clubs in the world. He's under pressure. On Man United, manager will always be under pressure. Of course, they'll always be looking for more quality in a team. You know, you look at the likes of Mbuemo who's come in, Sesko who's come in, Cunha's. I think Cunha's a terrific signing, and Mbuemo as well. But obviously, you're going to miss Mbuemo, Amad Diallo, and another player to the AFCON. So then there's going to be 3 voids they've got to fill there. So there's going to be a lot of question marks over, you know, personnel in the team. Does he move Bruno Fernandes one higher when Mbuemo goes to the AFCON and plays him as a 10? Does Kobbie come into the 6, who he's not fancied at the minute? I thought they bitterly missed Matthijs de Ligt tonight. I thought his leadership skills over the last few games have been vital in certain moments of the game. So, yeah, there's question marks all over the pitch, but that's the beauty of being at Manchester United.
What's the minimum he needs to achieve, Amorim, to stay at United, do you think?
Look, I think they've got to try and get Europa League football again, and as tough as that's going to be and as difficult as that's going to be, looking by the results and maybe the performances of late at the minute, I think anything less than any Europa League action next season is going to be very difficult. You know, you'd like to think with not being in the Europa League this year, you could have had a sustained run in the cup as well, albeit they got knocked out to Grimsby. So it's tough. It's not easy. It's not easy. You know, if they beat Everton and then you go to Crystal Palace and beat them like they did, and then you play tonight and you win that one, all of a sudden you're looking up, you're thinking, well, there's 3 wins on the bounce. There's a bit more sustainability, a bit more oomph about the team, heading in the right direction. But it's just, like I said, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And it's a difficult time at Man United at the minute.
Anybody that draws against West Ham at home at the moment is disappointed with the result. There's no getting away with it. I forgot about the Grimsby game. I forgot about that Grimsby game. That was another sort of debate.
They'd like to.
Yeah, and that just add that to the list. And look, when they don't have European football to worry about during the week, that's an extra. And one of the things Amorim has bemoaned as one of the excuses is time to work with his players. But he's getting more time this season to work with his players than most other managers or he's had before. So when the results don't come, your excuses kind of dry up and start falling on deaf ears. Look, I don't know what he has to achieve this year to keep the Wolves from the door, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe came out, 3 months ago, or whatever it was, 2 months ago, and said, we're going to give this guy 3 years, ridiculous statement. But that was made by one of the big investors at the football club, 1.25 billion or whatever Ineos have injected into the club, allegedly, in terms of, buying shares and buying players. But I don't know what the end game is for the manager in terms of what the board see as good enough to be sitting down at a board meeting and saying, this is what we've achieved this year, this is how we're moving in the right direction, and this is the way forward. At the moment, it is very stale, very stagnant, very stale, very much the same most weeks. Every now and again, they have the odd one where they're a bit better, and then they fall back into this sort of mire of mediocrity, which we saw today in the second half. And Phil's played at Man United, Shaq and I have played against Man United, the teams with the Keanes and all those boys in the 90s and the late 90s. The standards United are setting at the moment are just unacceptable. They're just unacceptable for most elite football clubs. And the manager's going to have to start getting better results. At the end of the day, this is all going to boil down to results. And the results, we saw a graphic there, the results he's had from just over 1 year in charge are not good enough and they're not sustainable. So he's going to be under pressure over the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 months to make sure these results improve, where he can go to Ratcliffe and Barada and Wilcox and others and say, look, we're progressing, this is what we're doing, and we're getting better. If it continues the way it is, he can't go with an argument to say they're moving forward, because at the moment, to me, they are stagnating.
But here's the counter to that. Kind of given the Ten Hag situation and how they manage that, it's an easy sell, apparently, to this ownership group that have done enough, given the fact that they extended Ten Hag after winning the FA Cup, and we all know how that played out. And then again, if you, at the start of this season, you said what was minimum for Manchester United, you would say that they have to get into the top 6, have to get into the Europa League and threaten the top 4. And now, while we're talking about, a United on the back of this poor result, I have a feeling that the top 2, maybe the top 3, will distance themselves from the rest of the pack pretty soon. And after that, everything is going to be rather congested. And that will, again, provide an argument for Ruben Amorim as to how good they were or how they've improved. Now, to that point, as critical as we have been of Manchester United today, had they beaten 10-man Everton, as they should have, given how long United play with 10 men, had they beaten West Ham at home, as they should have, given how poor West Ham are, all of a sudden we're talking about Manchester United joined 3rd with Villa. And that's how thin these margins are outside of, what I expect to be top 2, top 3. And that may give Amorim enough of an excuse that even if they don't get into Europa League, they miss up by a point, maybe 2. And all of a sudden, again, kind of given the ownership group and Sir Jim Radcliffe and how soft they've been on previous managers, maybe that argument again washes, which in truth it should.
If those results had gone their way, that would have been smoke and mirrors. You know, Villa have won something like 8 in the trot, or something like that, and they got a really good manager. I mean, they got a good squad. They haven't got the best squad, but they got a really good manager. They got a top manager in Unai Emery, right? He's flexible. He has a clear plan. Players know what. If you don't do what Unai Emery wants, then you're not in the team. If United finish 7th or 8th, or wherever it is around there, not many people are going to bat an eyelid. I mean, maybe the board will, you know. But I'm just saying from the perspective of people who understand the game, if they were to finish around that 7th or 8th position, or you know, we'd sit here and say, yeah, I can see that. I can see that, because that's kind of where they are. But my point is, that's not good enough for a club that size and a club that has spent that amount of money and a manager who's been brought in to improve the team. When we talk about improving a team, you talk about Unai Emery at Aston Villa. You talk about, although they had a bad result at Leeds, Enzo Maresca has certainly taken this Chelsea side to another level. Whatever level that's going to be at the end of it remains to be seen. But the way they played against Arsenal, they've shown they can play better football. And there are several managers like that within the league. Ruben Amorim is yet to show, if we're being honest about it, he is yet to show that he's got the ability to take United to another level, the level that they need to be back in amongst the elite. And so that, for me, piles a lot of the pressure onto the manager.
Do you think he is the right man to take United forward, Phil?
Look, results will determine that, as you said just then. It's a results business game. It's a ruthless game. You look at Liverpool at the minute; they're on a really poor, sticky run, and all of a sudden there's shouts and claims that Arne Slot should get the sack after winning the Premier League last year. So, look, results will be determined by that. I think the board have made it clear that they're sticking by him, that he's the right man to take the club forward. They like where they're going. But yeah, results have to change for sure. You know, it's not been good enough. I mean, I remember when I was playing that, you know, post for Sir Alex Ferguson era, we were saying under David Moyes that, you know, after post-match interviews, it was always, you know, we're in transition. We're a transition team right now. We need to regain a little bit of stability back in the club. And it seems to be, you know, spiraling 10 years down the line. We're still in transition. So they need to try and get away from that stigma and try and figure it out. But it's difficult at the minute. It's really difficult, the club. You know, results are hard to come by. Every game you're thinking, can they, can't they? You win one game or you lose one game, you're looking over your shoulder thinking West Ham's a difficult game when it shouldn't be a difficult game. It's tough. It's tough at the minute.
But that's the interesting thing as well with Phil, because he's obviously been there when Sir Alex was there afterwards.
I was just going to ask Phil, we've all, Shaq and myself and Phil played the game, right? Have you ever worked with, Phil, or seen a manager who has been less flexible in his system or less flexible in making changes and very stubborn in the way he plays? I would imagine most managers you played under had at least a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about managers. Maybe I would say Louis van Gaal was very rigid, very his way or no way. But he did have the ability to change, and what we did before games, and the day before a game, I remember doing 11v11. It was always about the players and how they felt in the system. And if the centre half stepped in, how did he feel about stepping in? Did you feel vulnerable? Did you feel like you could go and get there? It was always a collective, collaborative decision with the players, and I think the players embraced that. Not sure how much the players have an influence in that today. But yes, certainly he's very, very rigid. He's not going to change for no one. That's what he's been brought in to do. So I guess he's looking at it from, well, why would I change? That's what I got brought in to do. That's the system I got brought into play. So I'll try and get the players to see. I mean, I think I said it a few weeks ago. I look at the system they're playing. They've got, if you run through the team quickly, you've got Luke Shaw playing left of a back three when his first position is probably left back. You've got Diogo Dalot at times playing left wing back when he's probably a right back. You've got Bruno Fernandes playing as a 6 when his best position probably is a 10. You've got Amad Diallo playing right wing when he's probably a 7 or 11 in most teams. So yes, he's trying to get the best out of players, but maybe playing these players in probably the second or third best suited position.
So just to go back to the fact,
must be a Dutch thing with the
maybe a Dutch thing
with the stubbornness, because I played under Wim Jansen at Celtic and we lost the first 2 games of the season, and we had this big meeting and we all told him what way we wanted to play, and he listened to everybody, and then he told us how we were going to play. Anyway, but to that point, this is one of the things that surprised me, and I brought this up 2 or 3 months ago at the start of the season. Phil mentioned Bruno Fernandes' position. When you go out and buy Mbeumo, Sesko and Cunha, certainly Mbeumo and Cunha, who can play a little bit behind and off a striker, and particularly Matheus Cunha, who is a good player, but you have Bruno Fernandes, and I feel that I'm going over the coals here with this one and repeating myself. But when you have a player with Bruno Fernandes' ability in the final third to score great goals, to produce great assists, to produce great crosses and passes, why in God's name are you going and spending the money on players of a similar ilk and then having to push Bruno Fernandes back into a deeper position beside 2 guys, well, one in Ugarte that's not good enough and another one in Casemiro, who's just been one of the best in the business but can't really do it anymore to the level that he was once doing it? Why would you push Bruno Fernandes back there and spend that money rather than spending it in that position and keeping Bruno Fernandes further forward? Now, I hear people out there, people who just look at a bit of paper. Bruno Fernandes got the most stats, got the most assists. Bruno Fernandes got the most this. They'll give you an assist stat for anything these days. You only got to look at the ball and give you an assist stat. Right, Bruno Fernandes, it's not even up for debate. He would be much better for Manchester United floating in and around that front line, where he can get the ball in those little spaces and get tongue, poke those little balls through, those little delicate balls and clip balls in behind. So it just doesn't make sense from that perspective. So there are players playing out of position. But Ruben Amorim was there in the summer. He had to have been part of those conversations with Wilcox and Barada and others about the type of player that they wanted to bring in. And when you have your skipper playing in a position where he's less effective than he would be if he was 20 yards further up the field, then that's counterproductive to what you want to do.
And when we do go back, though, just to end it here with Phil, and obviously the fact and the point that you did play under Sir Alex Ferguson, he brought you in at Manchester United, you know the distinct before and after. You talked about those early years, it being a transition. So obviously a lot of time's passed since then. How do you explain what's happened to Manchester United since Sir Alex left?
Very difficult again. I mean, we talk about decisions and behind the scenes and on the pitch and players that have been brought in and externally people who've been brought in. I think sometimes in that moment you feel like it's only a little thing, it's only a little decision, it won't make a big difference. But over time, over years, they accumulate. They accumulate into this big scene, this big scenario that's happening at United, and I think we are now seeing maybe the decisions that they probably didn't get right over the last 6 or 7 years. Maybe we're seeing that now, which is why I have some sympathy for the manager. He's only a young coach. He's been brought in from Sporting Lisbon, where he was terrific there as a young manager, won a lot of things. Played a way that and style that he wanted to play, but coming to Man United is a different kettle of fish, and maybe we are seeing the decisions that we didn't get right in the last 6 or 7 years come to the forefront right now. But now we have to make big decisions and get it right, and people have to take ownership of that and make a decision and say, yeah, if it didn't go well, if it's not the right one in a year's 2 years time, then I'll hold my hand up and it's my fault. But yeah, it's been an accumulative over 5 or 6 years.
You don't understand. I think people don't understand the influence and the ability to turn the club round, like Sir Alex turned United around. Wenger did it at Arsenal. But maybe this conveyor belt of success that was going to continue was maybe a little pie in the sky, because why did Sir Alex go to Man United? Because they were a struggling club. They had their success in the 60s or whenever it was, but they'd struggled for many a year. Yeah, there was the odd cup competition, but they were not dominating English football. And Fergie comes in, it took him, what did it take him, 8 years, something like that, from 86. Came close a couple of times apparently to losing his job. It was backed by the board, and then him and David Gill had a great relationship, signed great players. United were successful. They turned over 2 or 3 teams. They had a great academy, which was around about the same time I was playing, when Beckham came through and Neville came through and Scholes and Butt and Giggs. The chances of that happening again are very slim to have that kind of quality of youngster coming through all at the same time. So the fact that he was able to do what he did for 20 to 25 years, I think shows you how difficult it was before for that club to sustain itself as one of the best teams in England. And since he's left, it has shown how difficult it is for this club, no matter what they've spent, to sustain themselves as one of the best teams in England. So it's a very difficult task indeed.